Welcome to the Library of Awakening, hosted by CyberX, a space where curiosity meets courage and ideas come alive. Here we explore the thoughts that challenge, inspire, and sometimes even unsettle us, because growth often begins with discomfort. So, welcome to the journey. May this space inspire you to ask questions, explore the unknown, and most importantly, to awaken. This is the Library of Awakening.
Alrighty, everybody, what is going on, Library of Awakening family? Welcome back to another episode. I'm going to hit you all with a very, very deep intro. Let's see what we can get away with on YT today. Tap in with me. Deadly arsenals that poison the air, food, and water supplies have been injected into the atmosphere since the late 1940s. The program known as geoengineering has been implemented by wealthy eugenicists to deliberately sabotage the planet and commit mass murder. And that is going to be our topic of discussion in today's video breakdown. We're going to be reading this book here by Mark Rich titled Planetary Sabotage and Human Extermination Geoengineering. I'm sure that a lot of you all have probably come across this topic before. Keep in mind that in today's episode, none of these are my personal opinion or perspective, but I am going to be reading some things that I personally do agree with to an extent, but none of this research is that of my own. It is just, again, a book shared inside the private CyberX Discord in the Library of Awakening section. Now, this current section that we are on the journey of in the Library of Awakening section is very interesting. Here is another book in regards to a previous book that we tapped into in a video just a few days ago titled The Worldwide Evil and Misery, another book on the legacy of the 13 satanic bloodlines. So maybe in a future episode, we will dive into a chapter or two of this book. I will definitely annotate it in my notebook to revisit and come back to this one, which sits directly above the Planetary Sabotage and Human Extermination book that we're going to tap into today. As always, if you all are here for the first time at Library of Awakening, do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button and subscribe. Don't forget that all of the books that we read, thousands upon thousands of books shared inside the private CyberX Discord, can be accessed at your fingertips. Head over to cyberxtrading.com. We'd love to have you on the team. Without further ado, let's dive in. So coming over here to the book and tapping into the table of contents, I'm going to make an attempt to get through at least the first 20 pages today, which takes us through the first 6 chapters. Very interesting table of content: geoengineering basics, worldwide fallouts, arsenal ingredients, suspected organizations, ponogenic. That's an interesting word. Never heard that one before. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it correctly. Probably not, though. Groups, and why we are being sprayed at the topics that we're going to cover today. Then I will leave it up to you guys to further your knowledge and dive deeper into the remaining chapters of this book: Geoengineering, Planetary Sabotage, and Human Extermination. So, as always, do me a favor while we're reading thoroughly through this, smash that thumbs up button and subscribe if you enjoy. If you've dove into topics such as these ones before, anything stands out to you, I'd love to hear about your perspective in the comments down below. Let's dive in. In these pages, I'll describe how the planet is being methodically destroyed and large numbers of citizens are becoming sick due to chemical and biological fallouts. The operation is directed by wealthy eugenicists who use think tanks and tax exempt foundations that are working with federal agencies, the military, and universities. We'll learn about geoengineering and how the organizations that promote it are using climate change as an excuse to reduce the human population and seize private property. Ooh, I don't know how much we're going to get away with on YT in this one, but let's see to what extent via the topics that we can cover. Because, like I said, in the Library of Awakening, we're going to get into some deep, deep topics. It's not just going to be about religion and ancient civilizations all the time. It's definitely going to be, more so on the conspiratorial side of things as well. Some of the topics that we discuss. To continue, it will be shown that they are dropping poison on you in broad daylight. The diseases which have surged since 1950 are likely due to their chemical and biological fallouts. We'll also see how their arsenal attacks are poisoning the soil, water, and air, resulting in mass animal deaths. We'll explore how they are striking nations with weather disasters as part of a problem reaction solution. Ooh, that problem reaction solution is something that we covered in David Icke's The Trigger book, right? In order to implement Agenda 21. Their degenerate scientists legitimize the fix and sell the public on its own extermination and enslavement. Using such methods, they plan to psychologically and physically exhaust the global population. After decades of chemical and biological attacks, the remaining sick and weak citizens are to be herded into overcrowded megacities. My goal was to illustrate an issue which spans many subjects in a short book that would be available to the public as soon as possible. In order to do this, I had to minimize the coverage of some critical topics. I discovered this agenda while researching another subject because I decided it was crucial to warn others. I discontinued my original project to write this book. Others have brought this to my attention. Now, I'm bringing it to yours. Geoengineering Basics Introduction. Stratospheric aerosol geoengineering, or SAG, is the term given for the intentional process of modifying the atmosphere and environment on a global scale. Research on this topic simply refer to it as geoengineering, although chemtrails is the common term. Geoengineering has been suggested to reduce the harmful effects of alleged human induced climate change. It has two basic methods. They include carbon dioxide removal, or CDR, to get carbon dioxide or CO2 out of the atmosphere, and solar radiation management, or SRM, to deflect solar radiation. Weather modification advocates consider carbon dioxide removal, or CDR, to be the preferred geoengineering method because they think it targets the foundation of the problem. CDR uses land, sea, and air based carbon capture methods to remove CO2 and other greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. Natural carbon sinks, such as forests, oceans, rocks, and soil, may also accomplish this. CDR land based methods include afforestation, planting trees to absorb carbon, genetically modified crops to reflect sun rays, covering land areas with reflective material to deflect the sun, painting existing building structures light colors, ecosystem management to protect natural carbon sinks. CDRC based methods are pouring iron into the sea to enhance CO2 absorption, placing dams in the ocean, modifying the surface of the ocean to make it more reflective, upwelling augmentation, promoting plankton growth to increase carbon absorption. CDR based methods use technological mechanical methods to sequester CO2 from the air. Solar radiation management, or SRM, works by increasing the albedo, reflective, of the atmosphere to diminish earthbound solar radiation. Although SRM techniques can quickly change the planet's radiation scheme within a couple of years, climate change advocates consider them complementary to CDR because they do not treat the supposed cause. SRM includes two basic approaches: stratospheric aerosol injection, or SAI, and space based methods. The stratosphere is the second layer of the Earth's atmosphere that starts at 5 miles from the surface of the planet and extends up to about 30 miles. Stratospheric aerosol injection is the dispersion of submicron sized and nano sized aerosol particles into the stratosphere to deflect sunlight. The injection of aerosol particles into stratospheres is intended to mimic the natural cooling effect of a volcanic eruption. The reflective particles that are mostly considered by think tanks include carbon soot, sulfur dioxide, and aluminum oxide. Space-based SRM methods include attaching giant mirrors to low orbiting satellites to deflect sun rays, placing large glass refractors on the moon, launching trillions of tiny refracting disks into space around Earth, affixing reflective metallic disks to asteroids near Earth. Worldwide fallouts. Half a century of spraying, intensive or I'm just going to call it say, operations, are occurring worldwide. People in all US states and all NATO nations have reported these activities. Some have acquired indisputable environmental and photographic evidence. These aerosol fallouts, which have increased in recent decades, have been happening since the late 1940s, yet there has been no proclamation that the skies are being sprayed. SAI is not officially taking place. Unofficially, we are told it's done for our benefit. Most people are unaware that the skies are being polluted because they don't usually look up. Some suspect it, but are allegedly in denial. Others seem to confuse the aerosols for normal clouds. Up until the early 90s, the sky still looked normal. It was blue with white clouds. Now, there is a silvery mist of chemical and biological matter blocking the sun. Virtually all clouds today are composed of these particles. At one time, these activities could be denied, but this is no longer the case. Individual citizens and groups across the planet have had thousands of laboratory tests done in the last decade. Some were roused after developing medical conditions or experiencing crop failure and livestock die offs, which they attributed to SAI. Tests have been done on human blood and urine samples as well as environmental sources such as streams, rivers, lakes, ponds, snow, rain, soil, trees, plants, and air. The samples contain high levels of the material that we'll see in the next chapter. The photographic and video evidence of geoengineering is compelling. It includes thousands of videos and pictures taken by people all over the world, many of which are available online. And I'm actually pretty sure if we scroll down here, yeah, there's some pictures of this inside the book. So here you can see it says stratospheric aerosol injection, planes leaving short aerosol trails, stratospheric aerosol injection, so on and so forth, long trail, partially dissipated trail below it. So you guys can kind of just see some of these pictures and go ahead and smash that thumbs up button and subscribe if you guys have been tapped into this type of research and awakening for some time, right? If this is your first time hearing something like this, then can you agree to some extent that you've seen these types of lines in the sky, which you most likely have? Okay, well, now you're learning a little bit about what this actually is. Okay, so let's scroll back up and finish this. Regular condensation trails or contrails are composed of vaporized moisture and ice crystals that dissipate in less than a minute. They are similar to the vapor you see from or nope. They are similar to the vapor that you see from your breath on a cold day. Chemical trails or chemtrails cover the sky from horizon to horizon in a grid pattern. Then they expand to form an artificial cloud that obscures the entire sky. Reports of SAI basically describe it this way. And I'll pause right there. People that will oppose you and say that they're not spraying the sky and say that it's a conspiracy theory will say that these contrails, which is just the composed vaporized moisture and ice crystals, are what you're thinking are chemtrails. But clearly there's a distinct difference, right? Reports of SAI basically describe it this way: multiple planes at the same time altitude spray in one area for hours to form crossing grid patterns. They make repeated U turns back and forth, sometimes turning the sprayers on and off while doing so. When the operation is complete, the aerosols cover the entire visible sky from horizon to horizon in a grid pattern. Unlike regular contrails, which disappear in less than a minute, they last up for 20 hours, although they may dilate. The amount of time aerosols remain in the sky depends on content, humidity, temperature, and air pressure, among other factors. The grid lines eventually expand and join to form a silver gray chemical and biological haze that covers the whole sky. This cloud of toxins falls to Earth, where it ends up in the air, in the soil, and in water. Although the pattern that you just learned about has occurred repeatedly, all trails that are visible from the ground, even the short ones that quickly dissipate, are probably aerosols. Since about 2010, people have reported that the trails are much shorter and sometimes barely visible. For decades, they were long and persistent trails. Now, they are non persistent, dissipate within minutes, or short and non persistent. Allegedly, because citizens have been documenting these fallouts, alterations have been made to the dispersal equipment and aerosol composition on some planes. Another tactic includes dispersing the aerosols at the higher altitude so they can't be seen from the surface of the planet. Old low bypass turbine fan and turbojet engines did produce contrails. However, except for the fighter jets, almost all commercial and large military aircraft use the more adept high bypass turbofan engines. Contrails from these newer engines found in most jet planes are extremely rare and can't usually be seen from the ground. If you were near the aircraft in flight, you might be able to see a faint plume about 8 feet long that quickly disappears under most conditions. However, you will not see a contrail. So the predominance of trails you see in the sky, regardless of persistency or length, are part of the current geoengineering program and consist of the chemical and biological matter that you'll soon learn about. Perhaps Russ Tanner, founder of globalskywatch.com, summed it up best when he wrote, "If you see a trail come out of a jet, long or short, persistent or non-persistent, you can be sure that it's a chemtrail." According to witness reports and photographs, the aerosols are being dispersed by modified commercial and military aircraft. In most cases, these are unmarked military jets. People have photographed and seen KC-10 extenders and KC-135 Stroto tankers with no military markings dispersing aerosols. These are U.S. Air Force cargo and aerial refueling aircraft. American Airlines and FedEx planes have also been seen. The jets are affixed with external sprayers and have metal barrels of chemical and biological matter in their cargo areas. There is absolutely no plausible denial of this, proclaimed Dan Wigington, the top researcher at geoengineeringwatch.org. As we have film footage of U.S. military jets, small aerial discs, which appear to be micro aerial vehicles, or MAVs, have also been spotted emitting aerosols. The U.S. Department of Defense, or DoD, has a variety of these tiny craft, which can be 1.5 meters in size or as small as an insect. Here are the aerosol ingredients: particulate matter, metallic oxides, high density polyethylene fibers, and biologicals have been found in atmospheric, soil, and water samples. These are all referred to as particulates. Particulate matter consists of tiny particles 10 microns or less. 1 micron is about 1/70th of the thickness of a human hair. Some of them are nano-sized, 1/billionth of a meter. The chemicals that regularly show up in tests are aluminum oxide, barium, and strontium 90. However, all of the following ingredients have been detected. Oh, geez Louise, I'm so sorry, guys and gals, if I butcher some of these words. Nano aluminum coated fiberglass, ethylene dibromide, aluminum oxide, fluoride, nano aluminum, arsenic, barium, cadmium, lead, nickel, titanium, mercury, radioactive cesium, thorium 90, radioactive, selenium, strontium 90, also radioactive. Biologicals include mold spores, bacilli, red human blood cells, white human blood cells, Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Geez, what the heck is that? Sounds like a dinosaur. Pseudomonas fluorescens, polyethylene fibers containing mold spores, fungus, and bacteria, and unknown biological matter. Suspected organizations. Of course, the financial elite. Scholars on this topic portray the controlling faction of these operations as a global group of wealthy people working through think tanks, tax-exempt foundations, military, government agencies, private defense contractors, universities, pharmaceutical corporations, and national laboratories. The think tanks and tax-exempt foundations that have conducted geoengineering research and/or promoted it include the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Royal Society, Hoover Institution, American Enterprise Institute, or EAEI, George C. Marshall Institute, National Science Foundation, the Bipartisan Policy Center, and the Carnegie Institute for Science, along with the Novum Group. In academia, you have professors from these academic institutions that have participated in geoengineering products sponsored by think tanks and or promoted geoengineering. Carnegie Mellon University, Stanford University, Rutgers University, University of Oxford, Harvard University, and the University of Calgary. Defense contractors and government agencies that have expressed interest, promoted or researched, or had their direct managers participate in think tank geoengineering projects include Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, or DARPA, U.S. Department of Energy, or DOE. We're definitely going to get into DARPA in previous or future video breakdowns. National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, of course. Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, PNNL, and the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. 2 more chapters left. If you guys are enjoying this read so far, do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button and subscribe, as these videos do take time to make. Albeit I do enjoy sitting here reading our books in the Library of Awakening for you guys. If you all ever want to tap into the books yourself, thousands of them inside the private CyberX Discord, you guys can always head over to cyberxtrading.com. You guys can open these books and enlighten yourselves on these topics at hand. Let's get back into it. We have about 2 more chapters left, I believe, starting here with this word that I have trouble with. Panerogenic groups. Panerogenic groups. Probably pronouncing that incorrectly, but nonetheless, the organizations that advocate geoengineering in Agenda 21, which we'll soon explore, appear to be panerogenic, or psychopathy is the character deficiency defined by the following: an impoverishment of basic emotions, incapacity for love, lack of conscience, unreliability, lack of insight, and failure to learn by experience, antisocial, anti-human behavior, inflated ego, need for frequent excitement, lack of shame, tendency to rationalize destructive behavior, frequent lying, deceitful and manipulative behavior, and need to have power over others. Psychopaths are personifications of the lie because they are completely aware of their degeneracy. They instinctively spend an enormous amount of energy placing themselves beyond the reproach. This frontage is referred to as the mask. Typically, it involves the projection of a virtuous livelihood as well as a connection to benevolent societal institutions. In reality, these people are fundamentally putrid. They recognize each other for living among the normal people. Just as individual psychopaths construct masks to conceal themselves, a group of them will form an organizational mask which they use as a vehicle to legally achieve power. These are their humanitarian think tanks and charitable foundations. Looking behind such organizational masks, you will find the pure sickness. These groups, which are directed by psychopaths, have been described as panerogenic organizations, derived from the Greek word paneros, meaning evil. Since at least as far back as the mid-1800s, many esteemed people have issued frightful public warnings of an abominable entity that they encountered during their careers. They include presidents, congressmen, historians, reporters, and congressional committee members, law officers, government employees, mayors, educators, and authors. Their illustrations are mostly consistent. They describe a beast which has been called a variety of names. It has carefully disguised itself with the multitude of interconnected front groups that it uses to manipulate society from behind the scenes. At a glance, these groups appear to be devoted to the betterment of humanity. Some include the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the Round Table, the Club of Rome, the Royal Institute for International Affairs, and the RAND Corporation, which we'll definitely get into some of these organizations in future videos. It extends to the Bilderberg Group, the Federal Reserve, Wall Street, large tax-exempt foundations, and high-level satanic cults such as the Bohemian Grove. These organizations are composed of wealthy Americans and Europeans. Names that frequently appear within them include, obviously, of course, the bloodlines: Rockefellers, Harriman, Schiff, Carnegie, Warburg, Rothschild, Morgan, and Ford. Gates, Soros, Turner, and Buffett are more recent members. Their global headquarters is in London. In the U.S., there are satellites in New York City, Chicago, Boston, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland. They form the United Nations. They run NATO and most governments. They select the presidents and prime ministers. They operate the central banks of most nations, as well as the world central banks that include the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, or the World Bank. Interestingly enough, crazy, right? When I was a contractor, as soon as I got out of the military, I actually was able to go inside of the World Bank in Washington, D.C. Very interesting building. very secure building. Um, and then also, this includes the International Monetary Fund, or IMF. They directly or indirectly control major corporations, courts, federal and local police, transportation, the entertainment industry, media, top non governmental organizations that influence society, education, pharmaceutical industries, religion, utilities, energy, healthcare, science, and pretty much everything. Factions of this entity are promoting geoengineering because they have the means and motive and logic suggests they are probably responsible for the operations that are now taking place. Consider the examples of the consistent and widespread malice that has spanned various realms over the course of decades. They start all major wars for profit and depopulation, as well as territory occupation for their global revolution. The erosion of the Bill of Rights and the U.S. Constitution is part of their bid to reduce citizens to vassals. Negative eugenics, population control, has been funded and promoted by them. Their system is designed to keep people in a financial bondage. They're attacking millions with vaccines, which in reality are soft kill chemical and biological weapons for depopulation and profit. The New World Order, a global system of persecution and directed energy torture, is their creation. It is a protection mechanism built into the system that is used to terrorize anyone on the local level who might oppose them. Legitimate governments are overthrown for their global revolution. Some have logically connected them to large scale, you know what attacks here that have reduced civil liberties, furthering the New World Order. In their healthcare system, the fictional brain diseases, which require lifelong medication, are used for profit, social control, and negative eugenics. The illusory disorders also provide cover for their multinational force, or MNF, that is hunting down individual citizens all over the world and attacking them with tactical psychological operations, or PSYOPs, and directed energy weapons. Brainwashing programs have been installed in the public schools that they seized. Oh, geez. Those who resist the intellectual poison in these laboratory prisons are targeted for chemical attacks with psychiatric medication. Attention deficit hyperactive disorder, ADHD, is a completely fake brain disease that was designed to identify those with signs of giftedness. The psychopaths have furnished educators with a list of behaviors that are consistent with high ability and gifted individuals as early as kindergarten. People are brutally attacked with chemical weapons that cause brain damage. The inner core members of these organizations elegantly discuss moral sickness ideas that spawn such mischief. The inner core members of these organizations elegantly discuss morally sick ideas that spawn such mischief. If you study psychopathy, you may find that you are dealing with monsters that look human. Rather than a character of deficiency, some believe it is more accurate to describe them as separate subspecies of a human race. While individual psychopaths have a predictable attack cycle, this poneurogenic, there's that word again, entity appears to be attacking the human race in general. For centuries, they have been protected by a naive paradigm known as the common worldview, which basically tells us that such things can exist. In recent decades, the agencies that citizens rely on to alert them to emerged societal dangers have provided them with extensive concealment. Although they are surely guilty of crimes against humanity, most of their activities are not technically illegal. There is a shadowy dwelling between legality and morality in which they have been able to hide. That has all changed. Their efforts are now in plain sight. Many scholars have documented their repugnant activities in stunning detail. This crucial historical information is available to the public. Adding to their exposure are recent developments in the psychological sciences, which confirm this substantial evidence. Sentient people who are familiar with authentic history will always be suspicious when any of these organizations are involved in activities such as geoengineering and Agenda 21 that impact the following: living standards, environment, direction of society, population seas, civil liberties and human rights, public health, private land ownership, food and water supplies, demographic transition, and natural resources. The problem, reaction, solution. This is the last chapter we're going to tap into today. Why are we being sprayed? PRS is an ancient formula that has been used for thousands of years. Again, it basically consists of using a fictional or real crisis to bring about radical and controversial change. First, a crisis is generated by rulers. Then, the frightened citizens demand a solution. The solution is offered by the organization that created the problem to further its objectives. There are countless historical examples of PRS being used by governments, groups, and individuals. The problem, which we've gone over in previous chapters. The story goes something like this. Humans are causing climate change that includes global warming. The activities of an oversized human population are inducing the release of harmful levels of carbon and methane that are heating the planet and causing natural disasters. Humans are also consuming too much food and water, putting unnecessary burdens on natural resources. The current human population size is unsustainable. Food and water supplies are running out. The planet is in danger. The conglomerate of billionaires, scientists, and non governmental organizations or NGOs, think tanks, tax exempt foundations, transitional corporations, and international bankers have formed an alliance to save the planet. They have the answer. It includes implementation of the Agenda 21, as well as large scale alterations of the atmosphere and ecosystem, i.e., geoengineering. The CFR said in its unilateral geoengineering report of April 2008 that geoengineering might be necessary to protect hundreds of millions from global warming. If we are surprised by unexpectedly rapid or large climate change, there might be situations in which the government of the world would be justified in talking and taking collective action. In September 2009, geoengineering in the climate article, the Royal Society of London, which is the equivalent of the US National Academy of Sciences, announced that unless greenhouse gas emissions are reduced, large-scale intervention in the Earth's climate system would be necessary to stop global warming. The Novim Group, or BPC, and House of Commons outlined similar emergency responses to save the planet from human-induced climate change. Multiple independent geoengineering scholars have arrived at a firmly different conclusion. Saving the planet from climate change is a facade story given to the public, they said. The problem of climate change is used to justify geoengineering solutions, which serve a variety of purposes, as we'll see. There is a dispute as to whether the global warming is happening. If it is, the prevailing evidence suggests that it is caused almost entirely by geoengineering and not anthropogenic, human induced, as we are told. The promotion of global warming has been firmly linked to think tanks, large tax exempt foundations, international banks, transitional corporations, and UN agencies, which work in unison to implement Agenda 21. The CFR, for instance, has published many articles in Foreign Affairs over the last 2 decades on the human induced global warming crisis. Similarly, the UN, BPC, and Novim Group have determined that global warming is anthropogenic. We're told by think tanks such as the CFR and Royal Society that because climate change policies to reduce CO2 and methane emissions have not been implemented by governments, geoengineering must be considered. It is beyond the range of this book to sufficiently cover the subject of climate change. This is a paradoxical issue because global warming has been linked to a hoax. According to Wingington, those who seek to expose geoengineering and the emission scam often make the mistake of concluding that the planet is not warming. Their positive intentions are discredited in scientific articles because he says when you pursue the matter, you find that the planet really is getting warmer. It will be noted that the Earth's temperatures are the highest in 4,000 years. Although surface areas of the polar ice caps fluctuate in size, there is evidence that their total mass is steadily shrinking. Other than much of eastern Northern America and portions of Antarctica, the rest of the planet seems to be in meltdown. The climate engineers are able to conceal the warming by temporarily cooling certain areas with SAI and artificial ice nucleation. However, if the true purpose of geoengineering is to permanently cool the planet, then the climate scientists are making a colossal mistake. Although large ground level regions of the planet can be temporarily cooled using SAI and AIN, in the long term, this will increase the temperature in the low atmosphere. Even the stratospheric Wellsberg seeding for reduction of global warming patent of March 1991 reveals that SAI could result in an overall increase in the global warming. Spraying the stratosphere with chemicals and biological particles actually traps the heat in the lower atmosphere. It is like placing a layer of glass over the planet, making it a giant greenhouse. The warming, in turn, causes climate feedback loops that include methane and carbon expulsion. These greenhouse gases get trapped in lower atmosphere by the particles, causing additional heating after that. Even more heat gets sealed in the lower atmosphere. Heating the planet further, the cycle continues until the planet is hundreds of degrees in Fahrenheit. This is what happened to Venus, which already has twice as much albedo as Earth. About 70% of the sun's thermal energy is deflected, yet the planet's surface temperature is about 800 degrees in Fahrenheit. Many scholars on this subject have concluded that geoengineering is the primary cause of global warming. It is producing the exact effect that these supposed benefactors tell us it is intended to mitigate. These facts, noted Clifford Carnicom, the chief scientist at the Carnicom Institute, must be considered by any of those individuals that continue to promulgate claims of anonymous and beneficial mitigation in conjunction with aerosol operations. The real reasons. If fixing the planet is not the true purpose of geoengineering, then what is? Those who have studied this topic inform us that it furthers these objectives: negative eugenics, chemical and biological warfare against citizens, environmental modification, destruction, boosting military radar signals, obstructive law and tax agendas, Agenda 21, surveillance, weather warfare, ionospheric, heater enhancement. So, if you guys want to read further in this book, in the following chapters, this gentleman explores some of the motives in detail and gives you guys a perspective on the devious agenda to steal your land, oppress, starve, and poison, and murder you, even in some cases. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's read. It was a quicker read than usual. Nonetheless, good information to start to scratch the surface and peel back the curtains to do deeper research on. Take your time and just enlighten yourself as we head into the new year. Rolling into 2026. Many blessings to you guys. As always, if you enjoyed, smash that thumbs up button and subscribe. Don't forget, all these books can be found inside the private CyberX Discord. Thousands of books at your fingertips to awaken and enlighten yourself as we roll into the new year. Be cognizant, be aware out there. With that being said, I will see you guys, Library of Awakening family, in the next episode.
I know some of the perspectives that I share may be as challenging for you as they once were for me. But isn't that the beauty of exploration? Every perspective, no matter how unconventional, has something valuable to contribute to it if it's shared. Knowledge is not absolute. It's a living, breathing phenomena, shaped and reshaped over time. The important thing is not always be right, but to always be curious. Explore freely, share boldly, and learn deeply. And don't rely solely on others to validate your discoveries. Stand firm in integrity, even in the face of criticism. Remember that growth always means embracing the humility to admit when we're wrong. Learning from our errors is not a setback, it's the very essence of our progress. So, welcome to the journey. May this space inspire you to ask questions, explore the unknown, and most importantly, to awaken. This is the Library of Awakening,